Hi, today's episode is taken out of Exodus chapter 18. Welcome back to our series Lessons from Exodus. Today's episode is called Wisdom of the Sages. Age matters. In today's age, most young people do not pay respect to those who are older. We can see that show up in several ways. There was a time when people would stand up when an older person walked in. They would give up their seats, pull up a chair for them, talk politely to them, and address them respectfully with Sir, Madam, Mr., or Mrs. If they were walking into a store and an old person was behind or beside them, they would hold the door for them and let them walk in first. When older people talked, the younger ones would not interrupt. Their words would be heard, even though they might not always be followed. I watch how my father-in-law treats and talks to the older generation with utmost respect. After church, he would fetch them a cup of coffee at the church's recreational area. He would hold the car door open for them if he was taking them somewhere. Even though my father-in-law is himself quite old, he still shows respect to the older generation. I enjoy watching old movies where older people are shown respect. There aren't that many such movies you can watch these days. You can still find some of them, they're probably still in black and white. You see, my generation and my father's generation were raised differently. We were trained from childhood how to show respect to an older generation. Even today, when everyone is calling everyone by their first names, I would address the older generation by Mr. or Mrs. When alumni from my son's school meet up with my wife, they might want to address her by her first name. I would politely refer to my wife in front of them as Mrs. Chawla. Why such a fuss? It is because you will not listen to sound wisdom if you do not respect age. I'm not saying that all old people are wise. However, with age comes experience. Life has taught them something. They have done many things right that they can teach you for free. They also have done many things wrong that they would not hesitate to tell you about them because they don't want you to experience their pain. Wise people learn from experience. If you do something stupid and you learn from that experience, you have become smart. But the smarter thing is to learn from other people's mistakes so you can avoid them altogether. Young people think they know it all. They have indeed been exposed to technology and social media unlike the older generations. That makes them more knowledgeable about technology and social media. It does not necessarily make them wiser. There is a huge difference between knowing about something and knowing how to use that knowledge to make your life and other people's lives better. The ability to take a piece of information and turn it into a tool to help yourself and others make better decisions in life, that is wisdom. Wisdom translates knowledge into something useful. Wisdom provides a moral basis for all your decision making. In Exodus chapter 18, we see that Jethro comes to meet Moses in the wilderness. Moses receives Jethro with much respect. Moses is more than 80 years old by now. Jethro could well be over 100 years old. Moses still showed respect to his father-in-law. He bowed down to Jethro. This is amazing, keeping in mind that Moses was no ordinary person. When he left Jethro to go back to Egypt, he was just a shepherd. But the short time Moses was there in Egypt has transformed him into a mighty prophet. He saw God. He heard the voice of God regularly. He did many mighty miracles. He challenged the greatest king on earth. He overcame all odds and succeeded in bringing millions of people out of slavery into freedom. By now, Moses was feared by friends and foes alike. He had become famous and powerful. Despite all the success he had experienced, he did not let any of this get into his head. He still showed respect to his father-in-law. When they finished exchanging greetings, Moses invited his father-in-law to a meal and shared everything God did in Egypt. Jethro rejoiced to hear all the testimonies Moses shared. They convinced him that there was no God like Yahweh. Even though Jethro was a priest, he was likely not Yahweh's priest. He did not know all this about Yahweh. He would go back to his country a changed man. He had acquired knowledge of Yahweh that he never knew. The next day, Moses sat down and handled all the disputes the children of Israel had. He did that from morning till night. Moses was helping people with their problems, but Jethro was not impressed. Jethro said this to Moses: "What is this thing that you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit, and all people stand before you from morning until evening?" And Moses said to his father-in-law, "Because the people come to me to inquire of God. When they have a difficulty, they come to me, and I judge between one another, and make known the statutes of God and his laws." So Moses' father-in-law said to him, "The thing that you do is not good. Both you and these people who are with you will surely wear yourselves out, for this thing is too much for you. You are not able to perform it by yourself." You might say, "Old man, shut up. You have no idea what Moses is doing. He's a prophet of God. You're just an ordinary priest. Do you have his talents? If not, keep your advice to yourself." That is not what Moses said. He listened to his father-in-law. This is what Jethro advised Moses. Verse 19 onwards. "Listen now to my voice. I will give you counsel, and God will be with you. Stand before God for the people, so that you may bring the difficulties to God. And you shall teach them the statutes and the law, and show them how they must walk and the work they must do. Moreover, you shall select from all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. And let them judge the people at all times. Then it will be that every great matter they shall bring to you, but every small matter they shall judge. So it will be easier for you, for they will bear the burden with you. And if you do this thing, and God so commands you, then you'll be able to endure, and all these people will also go to their place in peace." Wow, that was such a piece of good advice from an ordinary old man with no prophetic experience whatsoever. You see, you don't have to be a leader of a multinational company to be able to advise a famous and powerful prophet. Sometimes you can see things they cannot see. Moses thought he was serving God and doing the right thing for the people. Although Moses' intentions were good, he was doing his best to help the people. He did not have enough wisdom on how to organize his workflow. Jethro just saved his life and spared people from wearing Moses and themselves out. Jethro never went to a management school. Age had taught him that when you handle a large work, you need to delegate. Then he showed Moses how to delegate and what kind of qualifications the new leaders he was going to appoint and delegate to should have. This millennia-old advice from an old man is still used today by most organizations, more by secular businesses and governments than in churches. Churches and Christian organizations would do good to give heed to Jethro's advice today. What happens when you delegate? Several things. Number one, you reduce your workload so that you have time to concentrate on bigger issues. That is leadership. The top leader should never be bogged down by the nitty-gritty of how the work is done. Others can manage the work for him. If the top leader runs everything, he will wear himself out and rob the organization he leads of his creative energy. Thus, the organization he leads will never grow, and the people he serves also will not grow. The leader needs to have the mental space to envision, plan, and strategize for the growth of the organization and the people he leads. Number two, you get to expand your leadership base. People generally will rise to the challenge of leadership when they have the right qualifications and the right environment to grow in. With the expanded leadership base, your organization will also grow. Number three, Generally speaking, people like to invest time and energy into something they have a stake in. A leader knows that his or her future will be good if he or she can do a good job taking care of the people and work he or she is put in charge of. The leader knows that he or she will not be stuck in that position forever. There will be opportunities for growth and promotion. Number 4, delegation reduces delays and frustration. Work moves faster when there are good and qualified people all along the organizational structure to take care of different problems and challenges. This can help improve the overall morale of the organization. Number 5, delegation also helps people to know who to go to if the leader at their level cannot satisfactorily address the issue. Can you imagine if the Supreme Court in your country is the only court people go to? The justice system will stall very quickly. You may have to wait 250 years before your case can be heard in court due to the sheer volume of cases that come to court every day. Would you like that? There are more benefits to delegation. I'm sure you can find more reasons to delegate. However, there's always risk in delegation. What if the people you delegate to don't do a good job? Simple, train them. If they don't measure up, replace them. What if they can't do as good a job as you? Of course, they won't be able to do as good a job as you yet. That is why you're the top leader. But you must delegate. That is how they grow. If you don't delegate, you won't last very long. Neither will the people you govern. It is not a choice, it is a must. But you can take steps to ensure that each person you delegate is the best fit. That is what Jethro meant by making sure that the delegates have certain qualifications. You can also keep training them so they can acquire more skills and become better leaders. I thank God that Moses listened to his father-in-law. He did not let his pride, his position, or his experience get in the way. He did exactly as his father-in-law advised him. Shortly thereafter, Jethro went back home. His job was done. You might say, God would have taught Moses the same lesson had his father-in-law not taught him that. After all, Moses had a direct hotline with God. He did not need human advice. Wrong. In my years of walking with God, I have seen so many well-qualified, charismatic, anointed, and powerful leaders fall, especially in churches. Why? For the same argument you just used. They thought that if they needed to learn something, God would teach them. They didn't need another human being to advise them on what they did. After all, they were God's chosen and anointed leader, weren't they? The reason why God placed us in the body of Christ is because we need each other. God will teach you things, but He has left many things that He would not teach you directly. He has appointed others to do that job. That is why we have parents, elders, teachers, siblings, spouses, church leaders, neighbors, friends, even strangers, and enemies. They all are there to teach us something. However, since they're humans like us, not everything they teach will be perfect. Some advice they give might be outright wrong. That is why we need the knowledge of God's Word and discerning of spirits. Having these two things will help us sift through the chaff to get to the really good advice. I believe that every church should be governed by a group of elders. That will ensure that all of them are accountable to each other, and no one is all powerful and will not listen to anyone else. That is a recipe for pride. That is a recipe for the downfall of many pastors. We need each other. We need the gifts each one can bring to the table. That is my opinion. You're free to hold on to your opinion. But I think on this matter, I have the mind of Christ. The New Testament churches were run by a group of elders under apostolic leadership. We should follow the New Testament pattern, as I think it is the best pattern set for us. Anyway, enough talk about delegation and leadership. Let me summarize what I've said so far. Number 1, we must have respect for the older generation. That will help us be teachable and we can gain wisdom from them. Number 2, delegation is a must in any organization. Number 3, we need each other. Don't ever assume that God will teach you everything you need to know directly. If you refuse fellowship and relationships God has put in your life, you're setting yourself up for deception and downfall. We are safer in fellowship. Number 4, a plurality of leadership is better than a single leader. It is good for a leader to have other leaders around them to ensure accountability, balance, wisdom, and safety. In the beginning, you might be the only leader, but try to add other leaders to the group who have the right heart as soon as you can. Enough said. I trust that you've learned something today. Do drop a comment or two so I know how this lesson has impacted you. Please don't forget to like and share this video. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel called 3 John 2, please do so. That way, whenever I post a new video, you'll be notified. I shall see you in the next session. God bless.